Okay, people, put down your phones and get off Facebook for a second. Unless you're tweeting me, then by all means, do your thing. The Twitter handle is Liz_Wheeler. This year, 46% of likely primary voters get their political information from social media. Around 62% of millennials will scroll, click, and read their way to the voting booth. Every single candidate fighting for a key to the White House this year has a Facebook, a Twitter, a Snapchat, or an Instagram account. But this is more about than just access to voters, meeting voters where they are with our noses glued to our phones. For some candidates, it's about tricking people into thinking you're likable or relatable, hip to the new technology. Take Hillary Clinton, for example. She's constantly trying to sell voters on the lie that she's just like the rest of us, that she's not the elitist who hasn't driven a car since 1996 or made hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in speaking fees right after she claimed she was dead broke. Hillary has 2.4 million likes on Facebook and almost 5 million Twitter followers. Check out what she and other candidates are doing right now on social media.
By the way, you may have seen that I recently launched a Snapchat account.
Megyn Kelly's really biased against me. She knows that, I know that, everybody knows that. Do you really think she can be fair at a debate?
Well, they look tech savvy, don't they? Both Republicans and Democrats use Twitter for real-time commentary to their supporters, and interestingly, they use Twitter most often to respond to attacks from other candidates and bash the other party during debates. Is it all just noise, though, or does it really change the course of the election? That's what we'll discuss now with national award-winning author of Got Social Mediology, Jay Izso. Jay, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, Jay, what is it about social media that makes it such an important part of the election? Is it that that's where the people are, or the news articles that are everywhere on our news feeds as we scroll down, or the feeling of being friends with the candidates? What is it?
Well, it's all of that, but it's also a little bit more. Recently, the Wall Street Journal posted that this is the first time in election history that the younger voters, the millennials, have an equal percentage of voting with the baby boomers. So the millennials are all over social media right now, and they are going to be a major part of this election. So it is the data, it is scrolling through the feeds, it is all of that and so much more, because everybody now can pay attention in real time.
So it's also then, it is the candidates going to where the millennials are, because they know that, unfortunately, a lot of people in my generation won't look at news sources in another area, that we're just glued to our phones, scrolling through our Facebook feeds all the time. So they want to meet us halfway?
Yeah, they want to meet you halfway, but I think they want to try to really sell you on who they are as people. Because let's face it, it's called social media. So they're really trying very hard to have that social aspect as part of what they're doing and trying to get elected. So they want you to feel a part of who they are and what they're doing.
All right, let me ask you, who's the best candidate on social media this election season?
That's a great question, because it depends on how you want to measure it. If you're measuring for total followers, and if you're measuring
No, you can buy that.
if you're looking all for that, then Donald Trump is the winner by far. If you're looking at sentiment, like who is the person that has probably the best sentiment, it might be Bernie Sanders. And if you're looking at money, well, if the Iowa elections say anything, Bernie Sanders raised like $3 million in 24 hours through social media right after the Iowa primaries. So, you know, it's really hard to tell when you're trying to measure this, who's really winning. But if you really want to put numbers to it, Trump's by far beating everybody in all of social media.
Right, I'd have to go with Bernie Sanders here, because his grassroots support is so active. They're nasty on social media for sure, but they're really active, and not just in the follower count bolstering. I'm not saying Trump does that; he probably doesn't. But a lot of the other candidates for sure purchase their followers. Sure. Jay, who do you think's the worst candidate doing the worst job this election?
Well, again, it depends on how you want to measure it. I don't think Jeb Bush is doing a very good job. He is having some difficulties utilizing social media. As a matter of fact, if you go to jebbush.com, you wind up with Donald Trump's website, right, on Jeb Bush. So that doesn't make him look very tech savvy in the eyes of especially the millennials and especially the digital immigrants. I hate that word, but the digital natives, excuse me. So I think he's really doing a poor job. Case is, well, I don't know what he's really doing. It's hard to tell what he's doing with his social media. So I would say those are the two worst right now in terms of Jeb Bush leading the charge in terms of not doing social media well.
Right. I was talking to a friend last night, and I was just saying, how do you neglect to re-register your domain name? Shouldn't that be the first priority of your digital team? And my goodness, it doesn't cost that much to own a domain name. Please buy it for 5 or 10 years. Even if you don't become president, it won't hurt you to own it for a little bit longer.
I couldn't believe that. You know, you could buy them for 20 years out. Why did you not just buy it for 20 years?
I know, and if you buy it for 20 years, it's only like $20 more. It's not like he doesn't have the money for it.
I couldn't believe it when I went and somebody told me about it. I went, I looked, I'm like going, oh my gosh, Donald Trump has got Jeb Bush's website. He's not going to look very good in the eyes of the millennials or anybody else in terms of being a tech-savvy presidential candidate. So he's really getting hurt.
All right, let's talk about some of the slip-ups. Now, on Twitter, this has happened probably more than any other platform, but candidates will tweet something or their staff will tweet something, and then the tweet will be removed anywhere from minutes to hours later, whenever the media sees it. What do you think has been the worst slip-up that's had the most significant impact so far?
Well, I think there's two. I think Hillary made a disastrous decision when she asked her constituents to do emojis for how they felt about their college student loans, and that completely backfired on her. She got all sorts of horrible things happening.
She underestimated how dirty millennials' minds are when it comes to the emojis on their smartphones.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about cherries and other sorts of other emojis, but we'll just leave it at that it just got pretty rough for her. But I also think Ted Cruz made a huge mistake here recently in social media. Because there was a timeline here in the Iowa caucuses that he didn't, if he'd have paid attention, if his team, not Ted, but if his social media team would have paid attention, they should have never tweeted out that Ben Carson was leaving the race, because there was plenty of time. And from a psychological standpoint, it looked like selective attention. They picked one tweet, they focused on that one tweet, and what ended up happening was it ended up exploding into the caucuses, and it probably did change a lot of voters' minds.
Right, it certainly changed the narrative surrounding Ted Cruz's win away from the fact that he won the caucus to the fact that, oh, did he use shady tactics or did he not? Is this a political war or did something happen? I agree with you on that. That's a good one to bring up, because I would have thought of a more scandalous one like the Hillary Clinton one that you mentioned. But that's a good tactic that wouldn't have been an error had it been outside of the era of social media, because it wouldn't have had such immediate effect.